All right, guys, welcome back. Tony Maritato here with Joey Albert. And so today, Joey and I have been kind of going through social media for a long time. I wanted to share ideas for physical therapy practice owners. And of course, this applies to OT and SLP on how we are building our social media, how we're getting eyeballs and attention. We know the currency of 2024 is attention. So first, Joey, how's it going today?
It's going good, man. I can't complain. We've finally got a little bit of sunshine here. It's been raining like crazy, so can't complain.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the temperature like?
It's like 75 right now, but yesterday we got up to like 86. So Texas is it's going to be a hot summer, so it's going to suck soon. So I'm enjoying it now.
I always forget. Are you in Austin or Dallas or where are you?
Right outside of Dallas.
Okay.
Yeah.
CSM. Where's CSM next year?
It's going to be in the DC area. Last year it was in Austin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's I'm thinking PPS. CSM was in Boston.
Yeah, was in
CSM.
Boston. I thought it was going to your area.
Oh, maybe it is. I'll be there. I have no clue, but I know PPS is going to be up in DC. But CSM, I'm not sure. I haven't looked at that yet.
Houston, February 13th to the 15th, 2025, Houston. How far is that from you?
It's about 3 hours.
Yeah, Texas.
Yeah. So 3 hours going 80 on the highway in Texas because we don't believe in slow.
Well, I think I might be there. I think I'm gonna co-speak with somebody. I'm not positive, so I won't say anything more than that.
Oh.
I never do those kinds of events, so I'll be looking forward to it.
It'll be good to be the first time I can actually meet you in person.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about social media. Let me share kind of my history, my perspective for those watching. I know when I hear social media for marketing, it usually just, I don't even pay attention. Like I remember you, I remember Will Boyd, I remember several others talking about Facebook ads, talking about social media. And I was that typical guy, I was like, oh, cool. I'm going to create a Facebook page and I'm going to get 1 million likes and I'm going to get all this stuff. And I got nothing. But ironically, I still live in social media. Like I started my YouTube channel, honestly, in 2006, my first YouTube channel, but then I ignored it and in, I think I want to say 2017, one of like 5 videos I published, started gaining traction. That got me more motivated. Then I got back into it. Now my total knee replacement YouTube channel, which is my practice YouTube channel, has 50,000 subscribers, does about 5 million views a year. I get a ton of traffic. I get a lot of calls, a lot of interest. If I wanted to do telehealth or consults, I could do it full-time from just that. I've got a Facebook group, which I'm lumping into today's conversation on total knee replacement, that I think has 17,000 members or 14,000 members, something like that. Really active, lots of engagement. What else? I just started Pinterest. I'm on LinkedIn. But, I love SEO. I love YouTube and I love Facebook groups. Like those are the 3 things. I don't do anything on Instagram. I don't do anything on TikTok. I don't do anything anywhere else. And I do all my own stuff. I should have an editor. I don't, not because I don't think they could do a good job. I just don't. I don't want to go through the process of finding one and hiring one and getting on page with one. And I think it's still too painful for me to pay the money I would need to pay for a good one, even though a good one would accelerate my growth. So I am still the one doing every piece of content, posting every post, doing everything in it. Now you're kind of in the other camp. Let's hear about you.
So we do kind of need to delineate the rehab CEOs as a brand versus what I actually think clinics should do, because I think that they're very, very different. And sometimes people think there's incongruency there because content wise, we're literally on every platform now. Even if I know our audience is probably not there, we're probably still distributing it there. And so for us, me kind of going back, it was pretty much Facebook group. And that was pretty much it. Like I didn't even for back when I was PT Marketing Secrets, I don't even think I had a website for the first 4 years. And now that's coming from someone who sells websites for a living. And so there's definitely times and needs of when you kind of get into these things. But on the clinic side of things, I pretty much am seeing you have to figure out what your goal of the actual overall growth of everything is. Because when you get into some of this stuff, it's very easy to go down the rabbit hole and get the dopamine of like, hey, I finally had my first viral TikTok or my first viral YouTube and stuff like that. And then that distracts you maybe from some of the other things in business that we know will actually maybe generate a referral source. And so for us, the way we at least teach our clinics, unless you're trying to build a national brand or you're fine being a solo clinic and you're just wanting to build more of an online thing, because I know that's a lot more of kind of a lot of what you kind of speak to, Tony, is content in itself is not really seen as lead generation for us. We see it more as lead nurture. So lead generation means like someone actually finds you, they call you, they opt into something saying, I want your help in this local area, and they become a patient and or referral source. And so what we see kind of across the board, because we've got guys that have 0 followers all the way to hundreds of thousands of followers, there's not really a big difference in the amount of evaluations that we see. And so if followers and reach and growth and all that doesn't really necessarily delineate like, okay, I have this, therefore I should be busier in the clinic, well, then why are we still focusing on it? So for us, we see it as lead nurture. So once someone knows who we are, maybe they see a Facebook ad and Instagram, someone tells them, hey, you got to go see Joe Schmo Physical Therapy. Then they're going to see your content. Then that will essentially help you be delineated from the person down the street. So they didn't generate the lead per se because they didn't stumble across you. It's they found your stuff and then they did their due diligence. And that's how you can kind of turn a random cold stranger into maybe being someone that's more to convert. So there is definitely a balance of how you do that content. So you're not going to be kind of always fixated on like, I've got to do the next exercise video. And I always joke about it, but like the world doesn't need another external rotation video. Like we really don't need that. And so like we focus more on highlighting actual results. So it's Google reviews and highlighting those. And then from there, it's graduations, is highlighting people that you helped. So that way people can see their self inside that person. So then they see that they can actually be helped. Anything else more than that, outside of maybe like interviewing local businesses in your area to highlight them and build referral sources, is probably a waste of time for most people who are trying to build a local business.
Yeah,
but it's hard. Go ahead.
You said something that was really interesting. I've been watching, there were 2 recent Ryan Pineda interviews. One was with Russell Brunson recently, and then another one about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Both of them kind of said the same thing. They said it used to be you would run Facebook ads and you'd get clients. And now what they're seeing is they'd run Facebook ads. Then the person who watched the ad would then go on social, go to YouTube, go to Facebook, go find profiles and start to know the person a little more before they purchased whatever the service or product was. And that's kind of what you're saying too, is you might run an ad and then have that social presence so that people get to know, like, and trust you watching your videos, listening to your podcast. I don't do the ad part, but I feel like when people are looking for information, they're coming across my total knee replacement videos. They're binge watching multiple knee replacement videos because I've answered so many of their questions before they even ask them, that they build a level of trust. I mean, people are leaving messages on my clinic phone all the time. They're out of area people, so they're not coming to see me. Yeah. But there's such a deep connection, such a deep level of trust. And, I never claim to be the best therapist, but I think they just want to connect with somebody.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that there's a lot of kind of even thinking about how like cycles of social media work. I think the different platforms play differently. Like your Facebook, it's been around. Like I don't think people realize it's been like 20 years now. Because the amount of people who are like, well, like geriatric people they're not on Facebook. And I'm like, well, geriatric people were 45 when Facebook came out. So like there's actually a lot of people that are above 65 that are actually on Facebook. And so I think there's also just the delineation of people understanding like there always has to be this ratio of organic content to paid ads. Like that's been studied across the board. Like if you look at TV, they have a certain amount of ads they do for the amount of organic they do. Facebook, the more mature the platform is, essentially the more ads you have. That's why TikTok has like nothing. Facebook has a ton. It's more mature. People aren't leaving. They're established. Instagram has kind of somewhere in between there. And so we have to look at those things and kind of realize like each platform's a little bit different, and you kind of need to act a little bit different because you build a relationship differently in all of those. The hard thing about that is when we're trying to do like the short form stuff, when we're trying to do the long form stuff, and you got all these different things, they attract different people.
Yeah.
Like there's some people that really like the writing format, some people that like the actual short form because they don't have an attention span. There's some people that love the long form. And so you kind of have to figure out, one, also, what do you like? Because if you always have to think like, oh God, here we go, another content day, you're probably going to do it poorly. You're probably like, and let's be clear, like every business owner I've ever met, the ones that really feel pressured, it's not because they actually want to do content almost across the board. It's because they feel obligated. I'm a business owner. I feel like I should because everybody else is, therefore I need to. But the issue is they're not happy about it. So then they put out subpar content. And then it's this cycle of, I don't like it. No one actually likes it because it's subpar, but I still got to keep doing it. Otherwise, people are going to think I'm out of business. And it just continues on. And then we wonder why it doesn't work. And so you do have to kind of think about like, is it worth your time? How do we want to build a relationship and kind of think that whole thing through? But I think sometimes people also don't realize like you can do all of the normal stuff, and like email itself could be the way you build a relationship. People only think about like the online options, but there's email on the back end that can be the way you nurture all of that. And you don't necessarily have to get into all that, and it's all evergreen. So like, because I know if anybody's going to agree with us on evergreen content, it's going to be you, Tony, who's like, I want to build this once, spend 30 minutes doing it. It's going to make me money forever on YouTube.
Yeah.
But like, there's a lot of things you can do, but there's a lot of platforms that aren't that way. Like I've never scrolled back 3 years on anybody's Instagram ever.
No.
YouTube is an evergreen one. So if you are going to do it, pick a platform wisely. YouTube is owned by Google, so that would make sense that if you're going to do that, it can play into your SEO strategy. It doesn't have to, but it can only help. So you just have to kind of think about those things. But with AI, with all the changes, everything like that, there's going to be a transition of way too much content for everybody, and it's all going to look exactly the same. And I think there's actually going to be a regression from all the highly edited stuff going back to just like, still we're not doing anything. That's why I think lives, like right now, you'll see I'm pretty much doing a live every day now. I think lives will actually start to come back because people can start to actually understand people's personality, and it's not so like heavily edited with all the B-roll, all the extra stuff, all the captions where like you're going to have a seizure if you watch it for too long because like we have to keep everybody's attention. I think the more we can bring personality into brand, I think that is going to be the thing that will start to be the transition that kind of cuts everybody else away. So that's kind of what I'd be looking at as the transition goes.
Yeah, and you're already seeing it. There have been multiple interviews with YouTube editors, from guys that work with Mr. Beast, guys that work with multiple other big channels, and they're all kind of saying the same thing, that we're seeing the pendulum swing back. We're seeing this rise of unedited, uncut, just human to human communication.
Yeah.
You know, I always think, like, I'm 49 now. I remember I had clothes that went out of style, and then I held them long enough that they came back in. I never used to edit any of my videos, and I've been making videos long enough that I still don't edit them. And now it's starting to come back this way.
I'm still waiting for my Jinko jeans to come back in style.
Your skater jeans. I remember those for sure. When we're talking about, you know, you use a lot of kind of, I don't even know what you call it. I'm going to call it automation. Like, my understanding is you do things and then you have systems that share your content across multiple platforms. I think people watching, I don't do any of that. I think people would like to hear some of that, whatever you're willing to share. Like, how do you get so much stuff in so many places?
Yeah, so a lot of ours, it's a lot of pre-planning on some of the actual content that we're going to do. So for anybody, if you're ever thinking, if you're going to make content, it's what are the beliefs that we're trying to break with the person that we're actually talking to? And so a belief for a patient is like, can I actually get better? Are there other options besides surgery? Is it worth actually paying cash? Is it worth my time to actually take off work? Like there's 100 beliefs that you probably heard. So just go back to your last eval, last phone call. There's 100 of them. Start to actually go through those, and those would be easy places to start. Once you have that, really all you're going to have to think is what's the hook? Because it's like, what's the actual emotion we're trying to get? So whether that's happy, sad, fearful, whatever. And then from there, what is the idea? And then from there, what is the hook? Because it doesn't matter if you have an amazing content. Because like, and I've seen this, and I can't even act like our social media on YouTube, like we've been doing it a lot, but like there's also a difference from B2B and B2C. Like you post one shoulder video, and all of a sudden you got 40 subscribers from a short form.
Yeah.
Where like it doesn't really happen like that in B2B. And so for us, it's you kind of look at that kind of framework of what is the hook. Because if we don't get past the hook, whether that's the written hook at the top to where someone actually wants to click like read more on an ad, or on content for someone to actually not care enough to just keep scrolling. And then we have to think about, are we doing image or are we doing video? Image, of course, has to be very clear on what we're trying to convey there. So if someone's scrolling, because I've never met someone who like slowly scrolls and goes through every single thing and reads it. Like it's scroll, 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 ad, scroll, scroll, scroll. Like you've got to grab their attention really quick. And so if they can't tell very quickly, like what the actual thing is about, and you actually deliver on that thing. So like it can't be a cat video thing, and then all of a sudden it's actually trying to get someone about physical therapy. Like it's got to be very much a match there. And then once we have that, then you also have to think of like, what's the overall goal of where we want someone to go to? Are we wanting them to book a call with us? Are we wanting them to just watch more? Are we wanting them to subscribe? Because you really should never have more than one call to action at the end of it to tell them what to do. Because someone who's confused just does nothing instead. Like that's right. The action they take is nothing. And we have to realize that, like, unfortunately, we're not just competing against other physical therapy clinics or anything like that. We're competing against Netflix. We're competing against TikTok videos about mowing someone's lawn, and you like get addicted to watching those. Like I don't even mow my own lawn, and I watch those videos. And so like there's all those things we have to look at. And so for us, like right now, we're using StreamYard. We're testing a couple different ones. StreamYard allows me to pretty much do one live video. It can now go to LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, personal profile on Facebook. It can then go to Instagram, YouTube, Threads. Actually not Threads. It goes to X, I guess we're calling it now. So it goes to every single one of those. And we used to not do that. And we tried to do the whole, like, I'm going to do a ton of content. I'm then going to kind of piecemeal it out. And like the feedback loop is so far, or like just the time to get it done. And I think that's probably why you don't do it, Tony, is because you're like, I just want to like think of an idea, film it. It's live. I never have to do anything again. And so that's kind of what we're doing now, to where like any of our long or mid-length stuff, when I say longer to mid, that's like 3 to any like 30 minutes or so. That's going to be streamed live, and then we'll repurpose it later. So we have a video editor that's overseas, very phenomenal. Like he's phenomenal at what he does. We have to give him very little direction on our short form stuff, because we've made it so concise of these are the short form videos that are like 60 seconds or smaller. It's very clear. That doesn't need to be edited any kind of crazy way and pick out the good parts or anything like that. But then we have Steven on our team who comes in, and he actually, all of our long form stuff, he actually starts to pull apart and says, this is a good part. This is a good part. These could be combined together. These could be their own pieces. And he's actually built out AI so heavily now that he transcribes so he can pretty much upload it into a Google Drive folder. It transcribes everything simultaneously. He's then built prompts inside ChatGPT to kind of know our voice and things that we're kind of going for. And then he uses that to spin it into written kind of versions of it. So that way we can have written version, we can turn it into shorts and kind of push this out across everywhere. Because right now, I think we're doing, like, not including the lives, we're doing about 350 posts a week right now across all the different platforms. So it's a lot. And for anybody who's trying to do content, that doesn't mean you're immediately like, hey, we're going to go to 350 and all of a sudden we're just going to be loaded with new patients. That's not how it works. Like, it takes time, and you're going to be like, hey, is it worth doing this? Because like maybe you can track impressions, you can look some of that views. It's like until you're monetized and you can track like revenue on YouTube, you're like, I hope it's working. Like, and then someone will be like, hey, I saw your video, and you're like, oh my God, thank God it's working. So like there's very much a delayed gratification on it. And I think that's why people actually give up on content for so easily. But it's the same thing in business. Like, people are like, oh, I want referrals, but then like they want them all like yesterday, not realizing that like the reason that most of the big businesses continue to grow, it's like it's just linked in the game. Like sometimes you just got to be around. Like not going out of business pretty much puts you already at a pretty good chance. And so linked in the game in general is going to help you on the content side, on the referral side, and all that. But a lot of ours, I can't even tell you everything we do because Steven's kind of the mastermind behind a lot of that. Like he just repurposes everything. And there's a lot of times where like when I see stuff, I know that it's stuff that I originally said, at least a version of it. Right. I'll be like, oh, that's cool that we posted that. Like, so I'm at a little bit different level there, but I think for anybody, it's just, what's the idea? Go film it. At a minimum, just throw it up. Like if you're going to do content. But again, I would still rather focus on graduations and reviews because those also help with SEO. If you get more reviews, you're going to be ranking more. That helps with actual social proof. That helps with hiring because if we have all of the best reviews, getting everybody good results compared to the person down the street that doesn't showcase getting anybody results, then it's going to help with sales. It's going to help with hiring. It's going to help with SEO. It's going to help with referral sources. It helps with literally everything. And it doesn't require your therapist to become content machines. Because like Tony may love this, but there's a lot of therapists. If you said, hey, you're going to get in front of the camera and I need you to come up with this, that like they dread it every single week. So I'll have owners be like, oh, my therapist writes all their blogs. And I'm like, how do they feel about that? They're like, well, they do them. And I'm like, awesome. So
yeah, I've said it before publicly. Like I don't think I've ever employed a single therapist or administrative person or anybody on the team who wants to do social media for the company. Even the ones that are shockingly doing it for themselves, I thought, oh, they're going to be awesome. They would love to do it. None of them want to do it. I am the only one in 20 years that is willing to turn on a camera and talk to the camera about, answering questions and things like that. That being said, Hermosi just posted a video where he talked about his growth strategy and everything that they've done in almost 4 years. And I thought it was interesting to see how he's tested a lot of stuff. He's got a video ad running right now that I think is horrible. It is so cheesy and so ugly. But I assume he's just testing it and we'll see what happens. It just feels so fake for the kind of stuff that he does. But he said he's pivoting, he went from, info or education to entertainment. And now he's just full into education. Now, of course, he has a major investment in school, the platform. But I think everybody who's going to listen to this, it's the same thing. Like we're never going to be a Mr. Beast. Most of us don't even want to go down that road. We don't need the post-production. We don't need the fancy edits and the frequent cuts. We just need to answer a simple question. Do I put heat or ice on my knee when my knee is swollen? Answer that question. You could have the worst lighting. You could have terrible video. You still need decent audio. I just talked to somebody who has a podcast. He interviews the most amazing people in the world. It is the only clinical podcast that I listen to, but the audio, everybody is talking into earbuds. It is piercing my eardrum. I can't stand it. Half the time I can't listen to it, but I still persevere because I want the information that they're sharing. So even for that, like you can get by. But I think anybody watching this right now, if you just started answering questions, super simple questions, one question per video, one question per piece of content, keep it short, keep it simple, and bring a unique perspective. The thing that like you guys are doing that I think I deliver, whether it's my Medicare channel or my knee replacement channel, the first video that kind of gained traction for me was about sleeping positions for knee replacement. Everybody in the world was saying flat on your back with a flat pillow, elevating your leg, keep your leg straight. And I was like, that's absurd. Everybody doesn't have to do that. If you have full extension, sleep however the heck you want. Even if you don't have full extension, but you're working on it during the day, sleep however you want. And so I brought a different perspective. And, the response from the total knee replacement community was huge. And then every single video, that's really all I'm trying to do. It's like, there's tons of generic information out there. Do I have to use ice? Well, no, it doesn't matter. It's just sensation. It doesn't reduce inflammation. It doesn't reduce swelling. It doesn't do any of the stuff we claimed for the past 50 years. If you like the way it feels, use it. If you don't worry about it. You can put heat. It's still just superficial. those are the things that I think the community is looking for. And those are the videos, the articles, the podcasts that people will resonate with.
Mhm.
And just throughout all of the comments, and that's what I really look at. I almost never get a negative or even neutral comment. It's almost always, I love what you're saying. I watched your first video. I've watched 20 since then. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. You know, it's never harmful or negative in any way.
Well, and if you need easy content ideas, after you do your evaluation, have your front office or even your provider, call every single patient and ask them how their visit went, what questions they had, where they need more clarity. Now make a video
Yeah.
on it. Like
Yeah.
that's literally the easiest way, and you're going to get a lot of insight that you probably should have been getting for years. That we need to be doing better on the front office and the valuation side. That will then save you a lot of money from people not churning. And so, like, that's a very easy tactical way to do it, to where it's going to improve your business. So, like, if you happen to do content on the back end of it, cool. If you don't, you're still going to be improving your business. The other way that we typically do this is if you have anybody on your Facebook, Instagram, anything like that, that's already following you, liking any comments or doing anything like that, go DM every single one of them. You're going to ask them, it's like, hey, thanks for following, thanks for liking, whatever they're specifically doing. We're always looking to create more content so we can answer more questions that you have. What is it right now that you're currently focusing on or having issues with? You now are getting content ideas, but every single person who says, hey, I can't do XYZ, I'm having pain with this, will dig 3 or 4 questions. It's now a very easy way for you to hop on a call and then get them in for an evaluation. So all of the, like, because most people don't realize, like, Facebook, only 2% of the people who follow your Facebook page actually see your post. Like, organic reach on Facebook is dead. That's why, like, most people do most of their business from their personal profile, because they can't really limit the actual reach on your personal profile. And the reason they do that, again, that's why Facebook, like, they want advertising, so their reach on the actual business pages are low. Instagram has a little bit more because it's a newer platform to where your reach is bigger. Give it 5 years, it's going to be the same as Facebook. Give it TikTok 5 years, it's going to be the same as Instagram. And so that's how all these work. But if we start to just actually want to pull an actual ROI out of the hard work we're doing, let's bring personal communication and touch back to it by asking them, what are you actually having issues with? From there, worst case scenario, you have content ideas. Best case scenario, you now have a new patient because they have actual issues that you want to do, and you have content. So that's a very easy way to kind of start to squeeze a little bit more out of any of the hard work that you're doing. Because as much as I'm sure there's some altruistic, I want to just put out content for the fun of it and help people, like, people also have bills, and likes and comments don't really pay those. So we do have to kind of balance a little bit of that. So I think that that's an easy tactical tip to get some content ideas too.
I'd love to hear some of what you're seeing right now across the practice owners that you're working with and things like that. Any trends, any opportunities, arbitrage. My thing is, and this has kind of been universal forever. So my Facebook group, I started with the Facebook group for knee replacement. I've got my Medicare billing group. I've got a couple other little odd groups. I get all of my content ideas from those groups, and I get the language. The reason why I started the group in the very first place was I was in other groups. I was there to hear the language real people were using when therapists weren't listening. And now that is, you know, probably 30% of my content is I just go in there, I look at questions, I find a question I want to answer, I turn on the camera, I read the question, and I answer it. It is that simple. And I was just looking, the last video I posted, I have not been posting. We did a big push in March. I posted every single day, multiple times a day. Last video I posted in my knee channel was 20 days ago. That video has got 11,000 views. It's had 4 minutes of average view duration. I think it's like an 11-minute video or something. And it's just me answering a question. Somebody was frustrated by the lack of progress on their knee replacement, and they wanted to know what they should do next. You know, so what are you seeing? Like, I've got some things that are working for me on LinkedIn. I've got some things that seem to be working. I don't understand Pinterest at all. I took a big hit and now I'm starting to come back up.
Yeah.
But what do you see working for your practices?
Yeah. Well, again, we kind of actually reduce almost everything to graduation and, and review. So when in doubt, start with that. Get used to actually doing that. From there, if I'm looking at other kind of low hanging fruit, it's not necessarily maybe on the, like, you have to have baseline content there, but a lot of our guys are wanting to build more referral sources. We're seeing that LinkedIn does really, really well, because there's no gatekeeper for doctors when it's their own LinkedIn. So like there's not a front office saying, hey, they're busy right now. And so starting to build some of those relationships there on LinkedIn is actually a very viable platform. Again, there's probably 500 other things I'd do before I'm like, hey, let's go crazy on LinkedIn here. But if we're wanting to at least build outbound to then maybe do interviews with doctors and stuff like that, I think that that would be the way to do it. I think the other way is also realizing that someone that is non-doctor, so you're looking at, I mean, honestly, any gym, any running store, any smaller kind of place like that, Instagram, doing DMs to them does really, really well, because they're the ones who created their account. Content wise, though, I think a lot of it's kind of the same thing. It's video testimonials to show that you actually know like what you're doing and people are getting results. And from there, answering some of the questions. I do have some people who have Facebook groups. I've found that Facebook groups can work, but they are a ton of work to get started. Otherwise, there's a graveyard of probably 100 dead Facebook groups for every one that actually has some engagement, of someone who had this grand idea of this is where everything's going to go. If I wanted to truly leverage a Facebook group right now, local business wise, I've done this actually in my local area just as a test experiment. I created a business networking group, and I just started essentially inviting people to it that are in the area. And I did that for like the first 100, and there's like 600 people in there now. Like people are like, oh, I don't know how to get referrals. And I'm like, well, I just kind of built my own BNI here. Like, so just do that. Like just do more of that. And so I think sometimes it's not necessarily more. It's just like, well, what's already working? Let's do more of that. And then I think sometimes it's actually being okay and having the permission to be told by someone who's in enough clinics that you don't always have to be doing content. Like the amount of people who literally have thanked me after I told them just focus on reviews and graduation because they felt an overwhelming pressure to do content. Meanwhile, trying to market, lead, hire, do everything else in their business, treat. Like there's a lot of higher ROI things for a lot of people. And it's okay if you go a month without posting content. Like it's not going to be a big difference. Like unless you're trying to be a YouTuber and you have like consistent content, and even then, if your content's not good on YouTube, you probably should do only once a month if you can only do one that's good once a month. And so like that's kind of how I look at it, is like remove, see what's working, double down on it, and then actually just adjust, ask yourself, do I actually need to do it? Because sometimes the easiest way to like free up time is realizing that the stuff you're doing, you don't even need to do. Like we've got so many people who are focused on some of these things and they're like, I don't have time. And I'm like, well, how can some of our guys that have like 3, 5, 7 locations have more time than our guys that have them in one PT? Like it's the same amount of time. And I know there's life circumstances, kids, all that type stuff, but like we all started at the same point unless we like came in and bought 5 clinics right out the gate. And so that means that someone is not focusing on the right things. Otherwise, we would expect the same exact results if we're focusing on the right things. And so that's a lot of what you have to look at on anything with business content, anything. Like for us, we actually cut threads completely. I was like, no one's on threads. I am not even bothering. They've got limiting restrictions on how much I can even message anyways. And Twitter, we don't even really do anything there anymore outside of doing a live feed because I can just add it to my button. That's it. Because I was just like, there's maybe people there, but it's not really doing what we needed to do. I was like, where do our people live? And so you kind of have to think about those things. And like for a lot of people, if you go after moms, there's local mom groups literally everywhere. Just start answering questions in there. Change your Facebook profile to say, we help XYZ. Make sure that your featured images on your actual post are things about you helping XYZ. And then eventually people say, hey, do you help with XYZ? Like it sounds very oversimplified, but like you don't have to hard pitch in these groups, and you can just go in, answer all these questions over a 2 to 3 week period. You'll get the little top contributor badge on there. And all of a sudden people actually listen to you. And so then when it comes time for you to actually maybe do something, it's much easier for you to reach out to an admin and be like, hey, have y'all ever had someone come in and do a live for y'all's group to provide value? Versus coming in, poaching people, DMing people, getting kicked out, saying Facebook groups don't work. So there's definitely a process to do it, because you've got people like Tony who's built this thing over 5, 6, I don't know how long you've been doing your group, but you've been doing it forever. So like, instead of coming in and trying to poach, like Tony's very open to actually having people come in and do some of this stuff, but like not if it's just like a, hey, will you marry me first? So
Right.
there's a lot that you can learn from just what Tony's done with his too.
Yeah, I think, I started in the same way. I joined Ben Fung's group. First time I joined Facebook, he had a group. I started just answering questions and providing like experiences. I might have been in one or two other groups at that point answering questions. And then you start building relationships with people. Then I was like, I'm going to start my own group for Medicare and cash base, and then the knee replacement. I think the knee replacement, it takes none of my time. Thankfully, there's an amazing admin who she manages another group, and she was like, hey, I love your knee replacement group. If you're willing, I'd love to help be an admin and, take off some of the burden. And that's it. Like, I don't do anything. I probably post in there once or twice a month. I'll scroll through for content ideas and share videos occasionally, but that's it. She manages everything. And we get people that are mad. And I'm like, I don't freaking care. It's a free group. I got a bunch of emails because another physical therapist who's doing knee replacements started another group. And they're like, I don't know if Tony knows. I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't care. If you want to leave my free group, you're going to break my heart. Like, get out. I don't care. Yeah. But the people who stay are amazing people, and of course my Medicare group, I'm more active in that. But even that, it takes no work. Like, I don't do anything. I don't do lives. I don't do a lot of the stuff that people feel compelled to do. And I agree 100% with what you said. Like, you don't have to do it. If you're just going to put a bunch of useless posts out there that are generic, that nobody's going to look at, they're not going to get any reach, it's not worth it. So I don't post anything on my Total Therapy Solutions business Facebook page. Nothing. When somebody needs an affiliate link, I'll throw an affiliate link there so I don't get, knocked by Amazon, but that's about it. I don't put anything on my business pages because I don't get any referrals, and that's not a focus of mine for my physical therapy clinic. But that being said, you said something, and I know we need to wrap up here in about 5 minutes. You said something that was really interesting that I had never considered before, because I was never on LinkedIn before. You know that I love the physician interviews, and I've done plenty of them. I never even considered to put those physician interviews on LinkedIn. Yeah. And I immediately, when you said that, I was like, okay, well, I know they're not going to get any patients from that, but it increases my authority, provides social proof that, oh, this guy interviewed that orthopedic surgeon. This guy has some connections. It does potentially improve their social proof among their peers. And now one of the conversations that's been coming up with the what do you call it? The non-compete, where they don't exist anymore effectively. Yeah. I know a lot of surgeons that are looking at doing things that would have violated a non-compete that might not violate the non-compete moving forward. Yeah. If they're on LinkedIn, I mean, that would be a great opportunity. And that seems like such a low competitive environment just because the stuff there is so generic and boring.
Yeah. Well, and people don't realize that, one, you can actually name it right to where SEO wise, YouTube and LinkedIn actually ranks really fast for some reason.
I got a ton of LinkedIn posts that rank on Google organically. It's the best.
They rank really fast. And YouTube, of course, is, again, it's owned by Google. So if you do your naming conventions right, you actually do have some of the potential to kind of steal some of that brand awareness of like interviewing XYZ doctor. And so I think that there's definitely some merit to kind of throwing it up there, so you at least have minimum viable like social proof, to where someone else can be like, hey, like I probably should do that. Everyone who's probably saying, well, I don't have that yet, how do I get someone? It's like, well, I thought there'd be no one better to interview first but you. So now you have the reason to flatter them of like, you're the only one I want to interview first. So even if you don't have an audience, that's the way you can kind of position it. But I think that one thing I do actually kind of want to go into, because I think that you kind of mentioned it a little bit, is the fact that a lot of people can get upset or worry about the stuff that they're putting out. So you're like, hey, there's some people that are kind of upset about what's in the Facebook group. They're upset about this. Robbie's number one most opted out email of all time was the one that was wishing people happy birthday. People will find a way to get upset. Like I'll post something and I'm like giving away like hundreds of videos or free coaching, all this stuff, and I'll tag someone with the @everyone in our group. And it's every single time there's one person who's like, stop tagging me with @everyone. I'm like, you're in our free group. Like I don't inherently understand why you're upset right now. Did I disrupt you watching cats right now? Like I don't get it. So someone will always find a way to get upset. So I think just knowing that that will happen, that'll make it a lot easier. If someone says something bad, there's people that like go on rants on some of, especially TikTok, because it goes like all kind, like some of our stuff have gone like mini viral on there. And people are ruthless. Like they'll just like, we've had ads where someone's like making fun of Robbie. There's comments on there where they're talking about stuff. They're like, that thing was worthless. And I'm like, yeah, it was worthless to you because you don't own a clinic. And just like someone else, if they watch it, if they don't have back pain and they see a shoulder pain content, it's like, well, yeah, that probably will feel worthless to you because that's not resonating with anything that you're actually dealing with right now. So just be okay with someone not actually loving your content, because it's kind of unrealistic for any of us to be good at content when we first start. It's like expecting to all of a sudden be like the best physical therapist, even though you just graduated. Like it's pretty much impossible. And so I think that's the kind of the hard thing though about content, is you have to do enough volume to get feedback enough to say, this is how you improve it. But that means you have to go through this really long period of sucking. And most people don't get encouraged by doing things that they actually suck at. Most people want to do more of the things they're good at. That's why people don't start exercising, because usually they suck at it. They don't start learning a new instrument, or they try it for 2 to 3 weeks, they suck and they give up. If everybody naturally was okay with that delayed gratification, we'd be very much better in business and our personal life. And so you just have to realize, like, you will suck at the start. Eventually you'll get to a point where maybe you suck a little less. And then eventually you may actually turn good at it. Some of us may never turn good at it, and that's okay. And so just figuring out why you're doing it will allow you to get through a lot more of that. And that's not the, like, we're doing it to get patients. It's like, no, like, why are we doing it to get patients? Like, is that to get revenue? Okay, well, if it's to get revenue, why do we want more revenue? It's like, oh, so we can take care of our employees more. It's like, well, why do we want to do that? Like, keep going and figure out what your actual why is. And it's like, maybe it's just lasting impact in your community. Maybe it's because you want to be a celebrity and everybody to recognize your bald head whenever you're on there. Like, whatever your reason is, figure that out for yourself, because there's going to be days where you're like, why am I even bothering? Like 2 weeks ago, all of a sudden, all of our short views went from like doing consistently at least a couple hundred, some of them popping off, to where it was like 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, nothing changed. And I'm just like, oh my God, what are we doing here? And so that will happen kind of across the board. You'll have a referral source who's amazing. They stop referring. You've got a therapist who you thought was awesome. All of a sudden they quit. And so this stuff always happens in life. So like, we kind of have to eventually get to the point where we expect it. Like we always say, disruption follows intention. Like that's a very much a proven philosophy pretty much across the rest of your life. Like when you try to truly go and do something, there's always going to be disruption. Like it's something that all of our owners that we work with, they know we talk about that. And then now they actually quote it now, but it makes it a little bit easier to be like, okay, well, like this is just the disruption. Because if we're not having disruption, it means we're probably not actively trying to pursue something. And so it's okay. I think just knowing that it's okay is something to really be okay with.
You said something that I want to save for next week. We're wrapping up, but you talked about asking questions. Why do I want more patients? I want more revenue. Why do I want more revenue? I want to pick that up next week. I love going down that rabbit hole and asking 5 or 6 layers deep why we're doing what we're doing. Guys, if you're still watching, I can't imagine you haven't gone to Rehab CEOs and subscribed to Joey's content, Robbie's content. Go support them. Go find them. Joey, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.